back in the category of extreme overreaction to trivial things. We're hearing about this kid who had a cap gun at his school, and he was like grilled by the teachers for 2 hours until he wet himself, and only then did they call the parents. And in the category of overreaction, earlier in the week, somebody inside Disneyland, as a prank, set off a dry ice bottle bomb, which is simply you take one of these plastic bottles that water or soda pop come in, you crush up some dry ice and throw it in there, then you quickly fill it with water and cap it. And the water will melt the dry ice and the carbon dioxide will build up until the bottle ruptures, and it makes a pretty hefty little boom sound. And at the time, I pointed out, because of the intense TSA-like scrutiny that you have to go through to get into Disneyland, at least as of the last time my wife and I wanted to go to Disneyland, and then when we saw how people were being abused, we turned around and went over to Knott's Berry Farm. I said it was going to have to be an inside job, and it turned out, yeah. Guy working inside just for a laugh was going to set off a bottle bomb. It's misdemeanor vandalism at best. And he's being held in jail on $1 million bail. At the same time, when these Wall Street CEOs who destroyed our entire nation's economy have not even been arrested. And it is an overreaction. I don't think it was smart what he did. I don't agree with what he did. I think it was a dumb thing to do. But it is a misdemeanor. Write him a ticket and let him go. It may be that this thing going boom was an embarrassment to Disneyland, because the guests into Disneyland were putting up with all this going through purses and backpacks and crotch grabbing, because the happiest place on earth would be safe. And the reality is that if somebody really wanted to carry out a terror attack on Disneyland, all those uniformed perverts at the front gate aren't going to stop them. Meanwhile, let's see, Obama has appointed a former Monsanto vice president to be the new food safety czar. A guy who made his fortune in GMO is now going to be the authority over what is safe or not safe to eat in the United States of America. And we have already seen this campaign to declare small farmers markets with naturally, organically grown food to be unsafe because they're not going through the FDA and USDA inspections, even though most of those inspectors are now on furlough because of sequestration. And we're going to see this agenda of declaring natural, healthy, organic food to be unsafe, but you should go over and buy this chemical concoction coming out of this industrial plant. And trust us, it's going to be safe. Now, meanwhile, over in North Carolina, they are proposing legislation that would make it a crime to expose how Monsanto and other corporations are threatening public health and the environment. It's Senate Bill 648. They're calling it simply the Commerce Protection Act, and it makes it illegal for whistleblowers to come out and say Monsanto's products are causing harm. That is truly fascism on display, because we know these products cause harm. It's been proven in foreign countries. Now, the good news is that apparently, faced with the rising tide of outright bans and the deliberate destruction of GMO crops, Hungary is literally burning the fields where GMO corn was being grown to get rid of the pollen. In France, they are literally trashing vineyards that were experimenting with GMO grapes. Monsanto is backing off trying to force these products onto Europe. Europe said no. And so Monsanto is basically going to come back to the United States, where the government is firmly in their pocket, and say, we'll make our money just forcing everybody to buy our Monsanto products here in the U.S. and denying them any other possible choice. And the backlash against GMO is growing. As reported earlier in the week, a wheat field in Oregon was found to be contaminated with Monsanto's GMO wheat pollen. Now, GMO wheat is not yet approved for sale and use. And somehow the pollen got out there and started contaminating fields. As a result of this, Japan canceled their plan to import wheat from the United States because they don't want these products. And now we are hearing that the European Union is going to start testing incoming shipments of agricultural produce from the United States. And any that contain genetically modified wheat will be blocked, will not be allowed in. This GMO push is turning out to be a disaster, but in the fascist states of America, you will be forced to buy and consume these products because Monsanto's got to make their money because they've got to write those campaign donations to Congress. Now, over in Illinois, there's a very, very bizarre story. There has been evidence that is linking bee colony collapse disorder to the bees' exposure to this Bt toxin that is engineered into the some of Monsanto's crops to have an automatic pesticide so you don't need to use more chemicals and so forth. And they found this these bees that were being raised by this scientist who was trying to look into colony collapse disorder. And he's been working at this for years. And he basically had developed bees who were resistant to that Bt toxin in the Monsanto crops. And the Illinois Agricultural Department came in and confiscated all of his bees that are resistant to GMO poison, and they killed the remaining queen bees in the hive so he can't grow anymore. And they're saying they needed to do this because these bees were not the standard approved bees and so forth and so on. There's only one reason. Monsanto intended for the bees to die off all along, to put an end to natural organic farming where the bees are pollinizing the crops, so that even farmers who don't want GMO crops will have no choice but to go to Monsanto and buy these genetically modified seeds on credit. They're hideously expensive. And you're not allowed to keep and replant seeds like traditional farming. You must go back and buy more seeds every single year. And as Monsanto finds itself kicked out of Europe, they're going to come back to the fascist states of the United States and they will force all farmers to use their crops by getting rid of the alternative. For all we know, Monsanto went out deliberately pollinating wheat fields with their GMO wheat. So by the time people started screaming about the problems with GMO wheat, it's too late. All the fields have our pollen. If you don't pay us royalties and residuals and buy our seeds, we'll sue. We'll take your farms away. And a lot of people had wondered if the die-off of the bees were just an accident or if it was part of Monsanto's plan to monopolize food production for the entire planet. And this action by the Illinois Department of Agriculture, where this scientist has developed these bees who are immune to these GMO toxins, and they take the bees and destroy the queens. This guy was on the verge of solving the colony collapse disorder problem, and they destroyed his work. If you can come up with another explanation for the motive, do call on in and share it with me. But as far as I can see, the only reason to destroy a colony of bees who have been developed to be resistant to GMO toxins is to make sure that all the other bees eventually succumb to GMO toxins. That's the only reason I can think of that makes any sense at all. Amazing, amazing. Greed just rules everything in this country. And I'm very alarmed at the very reckless way this GMO technology, which is the most dangerous technology the humans have ever played with. We're playing with the very code that controls our life. And as soon as they find a little trick, they slap a sticker on it and they put it in the store and they get it out there and they make their money. And it's very reckless to be playing with this stuff this way. the possibility of triggering an extinction-level event is obviously present there, especially with the epicite gene. Now, I just got a reminder from our control room that Republic Broadcasting is still in the middle of their fundraising drive, and they are within, I presume it's $5,000 to reach the fundraising goal. This is John Stadmiller's 1,000 ounce of silver pledge drive, and you don't have to donate silver. You can go over to the Republic Broadcasting website. You can hit their little donate button. You can send checks. You can get the address out of the little contact button at the Republic Broadcasting website. If you buy your silver and gold from Republic Trading Group, that also goes in to help supporting what we're doing out here. Because of Pentagate and all these other things that are exploding, millions of Americans who really were still wearing the blinders, they didn't want to know what was going on because it just disturbed their little comfortable belief sphere. And their bubble has popped, and they're starting to ask the important questions. They're not being distracted by Jodi Arias and Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin and the rest of the other distractions. They're saying, what's going on with this country? What's with all the wars? What's going on with the economy and private central banking? And now is the time for you to all reach in and help us. Reach out to these Americans who are asking these questions and say, come on over here. We've got the answers. Thomas Jefferson said it's the highest duty of every American citizen to keep themselves fully informed so they can make good choices. And if there was ever a time in our history for Americans to start making good choices, it's today. We need your help to do it. RBN does not get huge corporate funding. We don't have big advertisers who come in to support us just because they like our particular political point of view. We don't get checks with lots of zeros in them from shadowy non-governmental organizations to push a particular agenda. We have the freedom to say what needs to be said. Nobody's in here telling us what stories to do, what stories not to do. Nobody comes in and says, go easy on this group, follow this lead from the White House talking points. Nobody does that. We're truly a people's network, but it takes the people to keep us going. Thank you for your help. All of those that already donated and helped out, we thank you. We can't do this without you. And we're hoping that our current crisis is going to come out to a good ending for the American people, and when it does, you'll be able to pat yourselves on the back. You'll be able to tell your kids, I was there. I supported this virtual nonviolent revolution that won the country back for your generation. We're going to go back to the phones here. Mike in Maryland. Aloha, Mike. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I guess I was going to talk about the economy, but I guess you heard about Adam Kokesh. He's had second thoughts about the march on D.C. now.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that earlier in the week. He's calling for people to march into the state capitals, but it doesn't look like he's assuming a leadership role in that. And so I think that's going to fizzle. Everybody basically understands our government would love the illusion of a violent revolution that they could brutally put down and suspend the Constitution. Kokesh was going to hand them that. Everybody said it was a bad idea. Oath Keepers said it was a bad idea. Cindy Sheehan, when she was on my show, said it was a bad idea. Gun Owners of America, I think I heard that they came out against it. Alex Jones initially supported it. Then he, to his credit, turned around and said, yeah, bad idea. So this thing has definitely cratered.
Well, I was going to talk about the economy, and I keep hearing crazy stuff about the Japanese government bond market, how it's like on the verge of collapse. And I read the story somewhere, it might have been Zero Hedge, and you read something incredible, and you have to shake your head. Is this true or not, that according to this one article I read, that half of the Japanese tax money goes to pay for the interest on the national debt? I mean, that's just incredible.
Yeah, well, you know, a huge amount of your tax revenue here goes to pay interest on the national debt. We're in the same situation. The Japanese bonds, when they've been trading, they have hit limit down, I think 3 times in the last 2 weeks, and that's a very, very bad sign. And the problem with the Japanese bond market, if the Japanese bonds collapse, investors around the world buying any government bonds are going to start taking a close look at what they're holding. And the problem is here in the United States of America, there is now a huge Treasury bond bubble. The Treasury has issued Treasury bonds to give to the Federal Reserve so the Federal Reserve can turn around and crank out all this money to give to Wall Street, and there are not enough living American taxpayers to ever make good on all these Treasury bonds.